Welcome to another episode of Mere Finance. Today we're going to talk about the new reality that we think is going to be in the financial landscape. We're going to pinpoint sugar, supply chain, and the Hershey lesson. But before that, don't forget to subscribe. And also remember, last year, our main focus in our videos was the energy independence. How those countries that have robust energy policies, independent energy sources, are going to have also robust and consistent economic growth. Mexico, China, Brazil are examples of this. And then you see Germany totally crumbling because of the energy policies, completely dependent to foreign entities and totally destroying the industrial output that made it one of the best countries in the world. So the new reality for investors is rising rates to counter inflation, because we're going to see steady rates for the next years. At least steady, I don't mean it's going to keep at this level, but they're going to go down to the almost zero, near zero interest rates that we saw in the last decade. This is going to constrain a lot because the cost of borrowing is going to go up. And this also has a direct impact on the physical assets. Last decade, there was a lot of intangible assets. Technology was dominating the space. Then you also have the cryptocurrencies and the Bitcoin and the NFTs and all of these intangible assets that dominate the landscape. I think the physical assets, the real returns, are going to come from real assets, the real estate, at least in residential. And you can also see the commodities based on still on the constraint of energy policies, but also in the electrification of everything that we have talked here in this channel, have the need for those metals and the mining components to justify for semiconductors or to justify for the electrification of vehicles. The whole grid is going to be the place to be, so physical assets. And the most important one that we're going to look at here is the reshoring supply chain, which is basically deglobalization. We had a long period of globalizing everything, of having a product mined in Africa, sent to Europe, and sent in China, then finally sold in the United States. I think that's going to dramatically change because the supply chain constraint, but there's also a global misconception that now countries don't trust each other and you don't want to be dependent on someone else's industrial output, because that has a direct impact in your supply of raw materials or places. And you can also see here the commodity price changes over the last year. You can see sugar 40% up, silver, gold 16 and 11% up. This is most likely because of inflation protection. The US inflation rate at 4.9. Then you see copper, which has an industrial mining, down 9%, soybeans, coffee, corn, zinc, Brent crude, WTI crude, gasoline, heating oil, and cotton down. But why sugar so high up? And sugar has a direct impact on also food prices. Commodities, in this case sugar, are treated as raw materials that need to be hedged. By hedge, we mean we need to control the price. We are not going to control the price, but we need to use risk management, and we're going to use hedging in order to control the price of what we see in our expenses. So in this case, for example, Pepsi buys commodities 6 months out to ensure there is a good supply of sugar for its products, its beverage, but also that they know how much they're going to spend, and from there they can start looking at how much they can charge for the products. For example, Hershey, one of these bars that is around 41 grams, 210 calories, one of the Hershey chocolate bars, has around 2.3 grams of sugar per cube. So on each bar has 8. So each bar of this has around 18.4 grams of sugar. If you multiply that by the production that Hershey creates every single year, you're talking about tons and tons and tons and tons of sugar, which is one of the biggest inputs and raw materials that can definitely affect the profitability of Hershey. So they need to hedge this really well. So if your main raw material, which is sugar, is up 41%, you might have to raise your prices also in the same proportion. But if you raise your prices, then you're going to kill demand and you're going to affect profitability. So the best way to do it is through hedging or through what we call vertical integration, which is what Milton Hershey, the founder, realized back 100 years after. So this deglobalization seems to be a cycle. I think we're going to experience globalization again in a few 50 years, and then we're going to experience deglobalization again. Why? Because the outbreak of war in Europe had disrupted the international flow of sugar, especially beet sugar grown primarily in Europe, which made Cuba a sugar hotspot. This is Milton Hershey in his trip to Cuba. There was a huge supply chain disruption for him and Hershey. So Hershey Cuban holdings included 60,000 acres, 5 rose sugar mills, a peanut oil plant, a Henneken plant, which is an agave plant species, 4 electric plants, and a standard gauge railroad with 251 miles of track. Milton Hershey decided that in order to control the profitability of his company, he needed to ensure the supply of sugar, which is the biggest input, not only to hedge against the prices, but also to have the supply they need. So this is one of the finest of the vertical integration moves that we have seen in the corporations. And I think a lot of corporations are going to follow what he did back in the 20s and the 30s. So here, for example, we have all the images. He basically created a sugar town in Cuba, good salaries, good housing for the employees. This would allow Hershey to have a supply of sugar while also creating a good environment for its workers, just as he did in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That's why he picked. He picked central central Pennsylvania, because there is plenty of land and cows can roam there. And with cows, he doesn't have to worry about bringing all the milk from everywhere, like from Philadelphia, from different cities. He just has the cows there, just gets the milk, doesn't worry about war or supply chain or container prices or freight prices. So it's another really good vertical integration. And I think that's what's going to happen to a lot of companies and a lot of industries. So I think nearshoring is going to be the trend. We saw this in Mexico. That's why Mexico has done so well. Another great example is Sarah. They grow their own cotton. Actually, Sarah is from the group Intetex, which owns also Massimo Dutti and Stravus Villaris. The richest man in Spain owns Inditex. But Sarah, for example, is one of the brands. This is how it works. They have the commodity, they are their own supplier, and they are their own manufacturer. So the upstream part, the commodity, the supplier, the manufacturer, and the shipping is done in-house. They don't have to worry about getting the cotton or making sure the suppliers are up to date or they're providing the best cotton. They just grow it themselves, and then they can easily distribute it, cut costs, and then have a good business integration. So this is the topic we're going to see. A lot of companies, instead of just hedging and going into the commodities market to hedge, they're just going to try to have the commodities, the raw materials near, so they avoid all the drama they have experienced. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learn a little and you subscribe to our channel. Thank you.